Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. One of the things we were most excited for as Michigan fans, as Sherrone Moore takes over this Michigan program, is what it's going to look like on the recruiting trail, whether it's in the press conferences, whether it's with the coaching hires. Sherrone Moore has made it very clear that he wants to be more aggressive on the recruiting trail than the days that we saw with Jim Harbaugh. And Dale, this weekend represents a massive opportunity on the recruiting trail. Michigan hosting plenty of top prospects on campus over the next couple of days. Want to dive into the boys, some of our favorite prospects that will be on campus. Extremely excited to get into this one. Before we do, and as always, just want to say thank you to you guys and a massive shout out to the Michigan fans. Many of you all know by now the boys, massive Michigan fans, not a program across the country we love talking about more. Cannot thank the Michigan fans enough for all the support. If y'all do enjoy the content, enjoy the updates, consider subscribing to the channel. And without further ado, let's get into this one. And let's kick it off with, in my mind, the crown jewel of this Michigan class. One of my favorite offensive tackle prospects in this 2025 cycle. That's five-star offensive tackle Andrew Babala. Two things really excite me. One, the marriage between this Michigan program and Andrew Babala, to me, makes too much sense, right? You look at this Michigan program, elite at developing offensive linemen. This is a Michigan program that just put out 6 offensive linemen into the NFL draft. And you look at a prospect like Andrew Babala, this is a guy that is 6'6", 280 pounds, a former basketball player that is relatively new to the game of football. You can see that on the film, but what you can't teach is the athleticism, the length, the functional athleticism that Andrew Babala has. Dill, when you pair up an elite offensive tackle prospect with all the traits in the world to be an All-American, a first-round NFL draft pick, and the development of Sherrone Moore and this offensive coaching staff, I think this is a perfect fit and a massive target for this Michigan program.
Yeah, especially because, you kind of look, Michigan's pretty much maintained their offensive line culture, if you will. I mean, when Sherrone Moore got hired, that was obviously step one. I mean, what he did building that offensive line up from what it was in the early years of Jim Harbaugh's tenure to what it became, I mean, nothing short of amazing. And then you go in and you replace him with Grant Newsome, another guy who's kind of just cut his teeth through this Michigan program, worked with tight ends, worked with offensive line, I imagine, in that role as well. Just another guy who's kind of a rising star through that program, but really knows what they want to do. And even you bring in Steve Kasula to teach the tight ends. I mean, everything's kind of coming from that Michigan tree on that offensive line, being physical. And you're kind of right. When you take a guy who's mostly played basketball throughout his life, I mean, that guy, a lot of potential, obviously, because when you're a really good basketball player, that means you can move at the level you need to move to play really good offensive line. But that still does require a lot of development, unlike guys who come from the IMG type academies where they've just been trained to play offensive line forever.
And you see it on the field. Like when you turn on the film of Andrew Babala, you can tell that he is new to this sport. You can also clearly see the athleticism that he has for that size. And let's just be quite frank, it is rare to see someone 6'6", 280 carry that weight exceptionally well and display that kind of athleticism. Sherrone Moore is looking at Andrew Babala and saying, hey, we can make you a top 10 NFL draft pick. And I think Andrew Babala would be a perfect fit within this Michigan program. Last thing I want to point out, Sherrone Moore ties to the state of Kansas. Andrew Babala, the number 1 player in the state of Kansas. I think this one I think Michigan could really maybe get the inside track on Andrew Babala over the weekend. Next guy I want to go to, and Dill, you mentioned culture. You mentioned Michigan going out on the high school recruiting trail and grabbing guys that fit what Michigan want to do. Avery Gock from the state of Michigan, I think fits that bill to a T, right? He is a guy that when you turn on the film, nasty. Kind of reminds you of a guy like Trevor Keegan where you can play him at the tackle spot. You can play him on the inside at that guard spot. Wherever you have him, he's a guy that wants to get downhill. He wants to establish the line of scrimmage. And you look at what Michigan wants to do from a culture standpoint, fits like a glove.
And you've kind of seen that. I mean, Michigan's always kind of had those 3 to 4 guys in sort of that range where they're not maybe the premier 5-star, but that's kind of become the backbone of the program. I mean, you got to think of a guy like Zinner, probably in that around 200 nationally. Guys like Barnhart, Keegan, that type of guys kind of become what Michigan is. It's they stay in the program, they develop into really high level players, And you're right, they exhibit that toughness. And that's been such a key part of what Michigan's built their program around. I mean, you want to probably see them take 3 to 4 of that type of player every class. It's what they've been doing for the last couple of years, and it's worked.
And what I love about Avery Gaka as a prospect is the versatility, right? We just saw against Ohio State. Your All-American guard goes down to Zach Zinner. What do you have happen? Carson Barnhart, tackle, kicks in the guard. Trente Jones moves to that right tackle spot. Michigan values that versatility. Even a guy like Trevor Keegan bounced around on the offensive line, played tackle at times. When you're trying to build depth on that offensive line, having guys that can play inside, can play outside, massive. And I think Avery Gak's certainly one of those guys. Last guy I want to talk about, and again, the offensive line. You're going to see an emphasis. It's no secret Sherrone Moore knows what it takes to win a national championship. Michigan won a national championship based off controlling the line of scrimmage. You are going to see a high priority on offensive line guys. Marcus Garcia from Denton Ryan in the state of Texas, one of my favorite offensive line prospects. Still, you look into just the athletic profile before we get to what he is on the football field, a junior Olympic gold medalist in the discus throw. And this is a guy that, okay, that makes sense when you turn on the film, a ton of power in the lower body, gets off the line of scrimmage with a little bit different juice than other offensive linemen in this 2025 class. And you said this before we went live. Michigan's going to grab a lot of offensive linemen because you want that room being chock full with depth, because it is hard to go to the transfer portal and get starting caliber offensive linemen. I mean, what Michigan replaced pretty much their whole starting offensive line from last year. They only went to the portal and grabbed one offensive lineman because the depth is so good. Michigan going to continue to do that on the recruiting trail here.
Yeah, because you've seen when they build those big classes and you get to keep those guys in school, as we kind of mentioned. I mean, that has really been the key. You kind of look, I mean, this year, El Hadi, guys like that, I mean, they're coming up through the program and they've been waiting their turn, and you expect them to play really, really well. It's like, I think a lot of people on the outside think, oh, Michigan's got a big question mark at that offensive line spot. But then you think back to like, okay, who's coming up through this program? I think most Michigan fans feel really good about what they have because these guys have been in the program so long. And now you've kind of got the proof of concept of developing that type of player into a really, really good football player.
Why does Michigan not have to go to the portal? Because, I mean, you kept guys like Raheem Anderson, like Greg Crippen, like Giovanni El Hadi. That room, we said it last year. Michigan could have rolled out 2 different offensive linemen and been better than most offensive lines across the Power 5 landscape. And it's because they recruit a lot of offensive linemen who are high-level players, and they keep them within the program. Now, going to another position that I think is a very interesting storyline, Ohio State's #1 running back target, Bo Jackson from Cleveland, Ohio, going to be taking a visit to Michigan. Obviously, the connection with Tony Alford. Tony Alford, the lead recruiter on Bo Jackson when he was with Ohio State. Now Bo Jackson going to give Michigan a look because of Tony Alford. You know, Michigan grabbed Tony Alford not only because he's done a great job developing running backs at Ohio State, he's done an even better job recruiting them. And Bo Jackson gives Tony Alford an opportunity to really flex those muscles on the recruiting trail in a very, very exciting prospect.
And bring his crown jewel into Michigan. And again, he kind of comes in, no doubt wants to come in with a bang. Obviously, really dislikes Ohio State. You'd like to see him maybe like think, all right, I'm going to get, this is going to be my guy. This is going to be like kind of what kickstarts my whole tenure at Michigan. And in Michigan, you've kind of now seen another thing similar to the offensive line, those running backs, how good they've gotten, how much better you've seen guys get like Blake Corum, even Donovan Edwards. I mean, just steady improvement in when his name's called upon, makes big plays. Kalel Mullings, same thing. I think you kind of look, if you're Bo Jackson, I mean, that's a really good spot to be like kind of the bell cow at. Because
the best selling point for someone like Bo Jackson is that you're going to be running behind the best offensive line or one of the best offensive lines in the country through the duration of your time in Michigan. More importantly, you're getting a lot of carries. Like, it's no secret Michigan's going to be wanting to run the football. If you're a running back, you want to get your touches. You want to get your touches behind a good offensive line. To add a little color to Bo Jackson and what kind of prospect he is, Dill, you mentioned Donovan Edwards. Some Donovan Edwards in his game, not only an elite running back with the football in his hands, you turn on the film, an elite pass catcher. And right, Donovan Edwards, when he was in high school, you just saw how comfortable he was tracking the football, playing the football in the air. Not many running backs kind of have that feel. Bo Jackson is certainly one of them. So not only an elite running back, but a guy that you can get involved in a lot of different ways on that offense. Really excited to see what Tony Alford can do in the state of Ohio, right? He's been at Ohio State for a very long time, has built a lot of connections with a lot of different high schools in regions in that state. Tony Alford could maybe continue to change those tides, recruiting that state. Last prospect I want to talk about, and again, another guy that when I was checking out the film earlier today, extremely exciting. Andrew Olesh, tight end from the state of Pennsylvania. I'm going to make another comp, and I know it's going to – Colson Loveland. I mean, Colson Loveland, you take a look at what he was coming out of high school, was kind of a jumbo wide receiver, hadn't really played much tight end. Andrew Olesh, jumbo wide receiver, 6'5", 210 pounds, certainly has the frame at 6'5" to put on that weight just like Colson Loveland did. But you talk about – I mean, Michigan's passing attack often goes through the tight end position. So, one, it's a very attractive offense for tight ends to come play with. But more importantly, for Andrew Olesh, you're looking at a premier matchup nightmare. The size of a tight end that runs routes and moves like a wide receiver, you want to stick a safety, you want to stick a linebacker and Andrew Olesh. It's kind of like good luck because this is a guy that is just way too athletic for his size in a matchup nightmare in this Michigan offense.
And now you've seen, again, going back, like Michigan's done really well with those kind of start as or high school wide receivers and move into college tight ends. I mean, you think Eric All, then obviously Colson Loveland even comes in, takes that position to a whole new level. But those have been the last two guys, and they've both been really successful, and they've both been big focal points of what Michigan's wanted to do on the offense side of the ball.
And you look at the selling point, similar to the running back position, similar to the offensive line. What are you selling these guys on the recruiting trail? You can come and win national championships. We just did that. But more importantly, you're going to get developed into damn good NFL players. Right? Colson Loveland, in my mind, is going to be a first-round NFL draft pick in 2025. I think he's the best tight end in the country. A.J. Barner, going to be selected in the NFL draft. Lou Schoonmaker, NFL draft guy. Michigan pumps out tight ends to the NFL. Andrew Olesh, I mean, there's a reason 2 tight ends committed to Michigan last year. It's a very attractive spot to play tight end. That'll do it. We're going to track the wide receivers. We're going to go take a look at the defensive prospects in another episode. Wanted to hop on, talk about some top-end offensive prospects taking their visits to Ann Arbor this weekend. Appreciate you guys rocking with the fellas. Again, if y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Appreciate y'all rocking with us, and we'll talk to y'all later.